The 2026 midterms are still over a year away, but the Republican Party is already gearing up for the election. And why are we seeing political ads on TV already? Plus, we take a look at the state of Arizona's state legislature. What have lawmakers been focused on, and how have national politics affected that? And see the latest way authorities are adapting to the fentanyl trade on the border. It's all that and more this evening on Broomhead. Welcome. I'm Mike Broomhead. Before we jump into today's interviews, let's take a look at some of our top stories, both of them about immigration. ICE arrests in Phoenix. So what happened was ICE was making arrests inside immigration courts. People were showing up for hearings, having cases dismissed, and ICE agents were arresting them inside the court building. Protesters were furious, saying we shouldn't do this, that if they're obeying the law and showing up in court when they're supposed to, they shouldn't be punished with arrest. So they changed tactics. Now, after people leave the courthouse and they jump in their cars to leave, their officers are being directed by people with radios to pull cars over and make arrests. Here's the issue with this for me. We do this all the time. If you're on active parole or probation and you show up to see a probation officer and there's a warrant for your arrest, law enforcement makes that arrest inside an office. They do it for officer safety and for public safety. Both of these are safety issues. Now, the Supreme Court made a major decision. In this decision, they said President Trump has the right to cancel parole. This program was allowing people from Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba to stay here under the Biden administration on a parole program. The Trump administration canceled that. The Supreme Court answered a challenge and said that it is absolutely within the purview of the president to cancel the program. They didn't say whether it was right or wrong, and we don't even know how many of those 500,000 people will actually be deported. But they are subject to deportation under the interpretation of the Trump administration, sending another message to people that coming here is wrong if you have not come through the right channels. This is just another part of the message. I think both are good ideas. Could newborn babies soon get a financial head start? In today's Political Minute, News Nation Washington Bureau Chief Mike Vicaria breaks down legislation that's currently making its way through Congress.
A retirement account for babies? I'm Mike Vicaria, News Nation Washington Bureau Chief. Inside the president's big, beautiful bill is a measure that would give newborns $1,000 from the federal government. That money would automatically go into what's called a Trump account. Here's how it would work. First, newborns have to be U.S. citizens with a Social Security number, and at least one parent would have to provide a Social Security number as well. As time goes on, families would have the option to add up to $5,000 a year. The child is not allowed to cash out before they turn 18, which is when additional investments would be capped. At 18, the account holder can access half of the money to pay for things like school, training, and first-time home purchases. At age 30, they have full access to the funds. An analysis from the Milken Institute found that on average, a $1,000 investment could grow to almost $600,000 by age 60. I'm Mike Vicaria, and this is the News Nation Political Minute.
Coming up, we look at the state of Arizona's legislature, and with 2026 on the horizon, how is the Republican Party gearing up for the midterms? Political strategist Chuck Coughlin joins us next. It's important to recognize and thank the fine Arizona men and women who are serving in our country's military. One of the ways we like to do that is through a segment called From Arizona for America, and it's brought to you by my good friends at Sanderson Ford. So join me in honoring Bosun's Mate 3rd Class Cody Sneathen, a native of Cottonwood, Arizona. He's assigned to the Nimitz-class aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson in the Indo-Pacific region. For a list of more of our friends and neighbors that are from Arizona for America, just go to the Broomhead tab at cw7az.com. Hard to believe we're already talking about elections. It seems like we never stop. But joining us to talk about it, Chuck Coughlin, as always. Thanks for doing this.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry we're having to do this again.
A 5-day break from elections.
Exactly.
While we're on that topic, let's talk about some of the things that are happening in Arizona.
Yeah.
Let's start with the governor's race. Karen Taylor Robeson already running ads, running television ads. But Andy Biggs, they seem to be the two in the race. There have been some others that may jump in. We got a lot of time. But what do you make of this race?
Well, I think Karen has a problem now because Biggs has more of a lock on that MAGA base, on the Freedom Caucus base. Turning Point endorsed her the other day. That's a very big advocacy organization, particularly in Arizona on a grassroots
One of the
basis.
questions was possibly Charlie Kirk jumping into the race, but Charlie's actually hosting the fundraiser for Biggs.
Yes.
What does that young, tech-savvy base do for him?
Well, it makes a problem for Karen, most importantly, because what is Karen's lane if she's not the Trump-endorsed candidate? So, she has to make a decision politically. Do I just go attack Andy Biggs and make him an unattractive? We're both Trump-endorsed, but do I go after him and attack him and drag him down? Or what other narrative do I add to my Trump credential to say that I'm a better candidate, and does that work with a MAGA base? That's a problem. Globally, the problem, again, gets back to why Hobbs got elected last time, right? Did Hobbs got elected last time because of this very intense, very ugly Republican primary? And this is a history in the state of doing this. We've done this many times.
Well, when Ducey won his first term, there were 9 candidates in the primary.
Right. Well, when Napolitano got elected Attorney General the first time, I was running one of the Attorney General races that detonated that and created a path for her. So does that create a path for Hobbs, an easier path? I think Hobbs, as people think, that's true, that you create a more partisan, divided electorate with a Trump-endorsed MAGA candidate. Trump's got problems. We'll talk about those right now in terms of managing the economy and people's expectations of the administration, dampening. And so, you're 2 years in 26. What does that look like? And it creates potentially a better opportunity for her. But she's got problems too.
But do either one of those candidates, if there is a contentious, expensive primary, do either one of them have a chance to beat Hobbs if she's not primaried and she's just spending that $3 million pumping up what she's done?
No doubt. I mean, Trump won the state last time, so we are a swing state, and we've composed of voters in the center that can go both ways. We probably have a bigger Republican base than a Democratic base. You've seen the voter registration numbers. Democrats are diving for the tank. Republicans continue to grow. Independents grow faster. So who narrates to that part of the electorate that you need in a statewide election, which is unaffiliated voters and some soft Democrats and some soft Republicans, to go put a majority coalition together?
So then, very quickly, what do you make of the superintendent's race with Kimberly Yee now jumping in to challenge a fellow Republican? She's already won a statewide office as treasurer. Yeah. But what do you make of this race?
Well, it's more Republican on Republican stuff. I mean, to criticize the superintendent for being weak on ESA oversight seems a little tone deaf to me, because I think most of us are aware that the program needs further oversight. 8,000, cellos and.
But they're saying it's the legislature that should be doing this and not the superintendent.
Right. Well, but the legislature needs a bill signed by the governor. There needs to be some compromise with the governor, so the superintendent's trying to do the job. And so what do we do? And so I don't know that Kimberly Yee has been a fantastic treasurer. She comes to the race with a very credible background. She was the top vote getter in the last election cycle out of all candidates. And so she comes with it credible. But break that down to the narrative then. Are you running a race to say ESAs don't need more oversight? That's not palatable. I don't think that again creates an opportunity on the Democratic side to create and the Democrats have, as you just said, probably 7 or, they have a number of candidates running, deciding what they believe in. To me, the issue there is, I think ESAs are part of the firmament. It is what it is right now. Everybody's going to accept that. The question now becomes, what's the problem with public education? To me, the problem with public education is Title I schools. Title I schools have the underperforming kids, and we're not paying them more money to educate those kids. Everybody who I talk to, even in the charter school movement, says in order to educate these kids, you have to pay more money for those kids. We got a poverty rate a couple years ago, but they've cut that.
All right, I got to catch my breath.
Yeah.
We got more to talk about. We'll be back here in a moment. Coming up, our conversation with political strategist Chuck Coughlin continues. How has politics at the national level affected the Arizona political landscape? That's next. right, we're back with Chuck Coughlin talking about the political climate. Let's talk about the national front, what's going on. I would say you're the strategist. If there's one place the Trump administration is winning, it's on the border. It is with their border security measures. So I would say that the fight against them on a lot of this seems futile right now. But where it seems like there's a lot of inroads would be the on-again, off-again uncertainty with tariffs. Is that the truth? And if that is the truth, why isn't the opposition more focused on that? And we're still seeing representatives from Arizona going to El Salvador and Eloy. Why are they not more focused on the economy?
Two things. One, I think he is fumbling on the immigration side. That started under Biden, the last 2 months or so of the Biden administration. That was crashing, and that had happened. But now what he's doing is this habeas corpus stuff. I mean, he's arresting Americans and people who have some level of right to be here and deporting them. I don't think that's a majority position. I agree with his position of deporting criminals. It was in the New York Times today. There's an Asian woman in Missouri, and they're like, but she's a mom, and you're like,
but isn't public perception, and that's what we're dealing with, is what the public sees.
Yeah.
That the Supreme Court agreed with him on the parole. And so it looks like he's getting another win there. What you're saying, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with, but the perception is 90 to 95% reduction of illegal crossings since he's been in office.
Yeah.
So shouldn't the fight, if you're in opposition to Donald Trump, shouldn't the fight be more about the tariffs and the uncertainty?
Yes, but part of the economy is immigration too, Mike. We don't have enough people in this country to fill our jobs. So that you have to have a productive immigration system in order to have a productive economy. Back to your tariff.
But I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
But if the shift, if there's wisdom in a shift that comes that says now we've secured the border, let's get a system of a guest worker program or an easier path. If they do
You're
that.
sounding like Ruben Gallego.
Well, I've been advocating this forever, and
Well,
I
now
told
that's
Gallego.
what he's saying.
But the same thing. I
Right.
agreed with Gallego in that
Trump
we need
would
to
be
have
smart to follow that lead.
Follow that lead.
Right.
Now would be the time to follow it up.
Right.
But now the economy. What do you make of this?
Oh my God, we're in a tsunami. We're hurricane season again. It goes this way, it goes this way. I mean, he just has to stop. I mean, and there are ways to implement his tariff policy. That many of them are legal and beyond reproach. There are others, which he's been doing, which is just throwing a bomb into the arena. 50% tariffs on European goods, and the markets blow up, the economy crashes, and then 2 days later he's like, "Oh, we're not going to do that."
But then the market came back, and the EU came and said we're gonna come to the table. So it seems like it looks like he got what he wanted again.
But how do you plan? How does a business person who's investing billions of dollars plan with that kind of uncertainty? It's not hurting us right now. It's hurting us down the road.
But see, they would argue, and I tend to agree with them in saying that down the road, what this is going to do is the $12 trillion in investment in America. That down the road, that this chaos or tumult right now is going to pay off long term.
If it does that way, there's other competitors in this marketplace. China's a competitor in this marketplace.
Right.
The European Union is a competitor in this marketplace. Japan is a competitor in this marketplace. What happens with the dollar? Is the dollar going to maintain its international status as the currency that we operate off of? There's a lot of competing forces out there now because of all of this noise that he's doing.
The criticism I've had, the overwhelming criticism I've had on this issue has been the lack of explanation from the White House. The Treasury Secretary has done a much better job of explaining the goals and what they believe is going to happen.
Yep.
Should the president at least, even if you don't agree with him, sit down with the American people and say, this is what I'm doing and why I'm doing it? Would that be a better option?
If you can get him to do that.
But I'm asking, if you were that person in the room.
I'd be banging on him to do that and to be disciplined about his messaging and what he's doing. But he doesn't seem capable of doing that. I mean, this is back to the first-term problem of, emotional illiteracy about what's happening in the world and not being able to be disciplined about your message.
Which is, I think, what happened and why he lost to Joe Biden.
Yeah, I see the same things are happening now.
But it's weird because I like the direction a lot of this is going, but the messaging seems to be frustrating.
Right. I don't think any of us mind a smaller federal government. I don't think anybody minds the idea that the American economy should have a price to pay for admission into the American economy, that we should extract equal trade agreements. I don't think anybody has it. How do you do that? with causing the least amount of kerfuffle within the larger economy.
I got to tell you, I miss these conversations. So I know it's early in the process, but I'm glad we're having them. He's Chuck Coughlin. We'll be back. Coming up, see the new way authorities are sniffing out fentanyl traffic at the border. That's next on Broomhead. Here's a look at some upcoming events that should be on your radar. First up, First Fridays downtown taking place along Roosevelt Row and Grand Avenue. This Friday evening, the Phoenix Art Museum, Children's Museum, Herd Museum, and the Japanese Friendship Garden are also offering admission free of charge. Then, Fan Fusion Phoenix returns, happening Friday, June 6th through Sunday, June 8th at the Phoenix Convention Center downtown. The convention is Phoenix's premier pop culture event. Event passes are going fast. The fight against cross-border drug trade is going to the dogs, literally. Take a look at how Border Patrol agents are training their canine partners to make a difference and hopefully save lives.
Yeah, for the first time ever, Border Patrol canines are actually being trained to detect fentanyl. 62 Border Patrol canines are currently being trained at the Academy in El Paso, where they're learning to find fentanyl and other hard narcotics like methamphetamine and heroin. These illicit drugs are coming in between the ports of entry. Border Patrol and their canines are essentially the last line of defense, especially at their checkpoints. If they don't stop it, it could make it into the hands of someone you love, meaning there's zero room for error.
What's the risk if it's not? What's the risk if
somebody's life? Somebody's life behind the vehicle or somebody's life in the neighborhood. It could be somebody's kids. It could be somebody's husband, wife, brother, sister, uncle. In order for us to do our job here and train these dogs to the standard that we need, we're affecting the nation as far as a whole. All this that we do is not for nothing.
This is the way we can give back as a whole. As the canine community for the United States Border Patrol, been the best of the best for 30-something years, and now we're even adding on to that.
Let her do her thing.
Oh, she found it?
I was even given the opportunity to walk Nina through a simulation. Thank goodness she knew what she was doing, because I certainly didn't. She found the fentanyl concealed in a gas cap without any issue. And they're doubling their workforce in the next fiscal year, where they will have more than 300 canines to add to the fleet. Compare that to 144 back in 2016 to 2020.
Oh, I hot bus. You want to show yourself?
And they not only detect drugs that are being concealed, but they're trained to sniff out people who are being smuggled, trying to evade law enforcement.
You're gonna go up against the best of the best smugglers.
And it's all about the partnership with the dog and his or her handler. The reward is such a huge part. So when the pup does its job, they're rewarded as a good boy or good girl that they are.
What are you doing, girl? She's supposed to stop for the camera.
Now, I mentioned those 300 additional dogs that will be joining the fleet. Agent Lopez telling us that there are already 900 Border Patrol canine teams out there working in the field. Agent Lopez says they hope to get that number to 1,000 this fiscal year. Back to you.
This has been going on for a long time. The days when marijuana was trafficked, it was easier to find. They came in big bales. Cocaine changed all of that. It was easier to hide. Now with fentanyl pills and fentanyl powder and the clever ways that these traffickers are finding ways to hide it, you've always got to be changing your tactics. These dogs are invaluable. Their sense of smell is amazing. They are so well trained, and such a huge advantage because it keeps human beings from coming in contact with this poison. We know officers have been infected or affected by this when they ingest it. It can be deadly even to an officer that hasn't been intent on taking it just by touching it. These dogs are doing great work. The expense is well worth it, and it's a great addition, and it sends a clear message to drug traffickers that we are going to find you every chance we can. Thank you to all the guests who joined us on today's show. If you missed any of these interviews or want to rewatch any of them, head over to cw7az.com/Broomhead. Every Sunday here on Broomhead, we ask a new poll question we'd like you to participate in. This week, the question is, are you ready for the 2026 election campaign that's starting this year? All you have to do is head over to cw7az.com/Broomhead to respond to the poll question. Thank you for joining us this week on Broomhead.